Welcome to Conversations Different, the podcast from the Santa Fe New Mexican, focusing on the interesting people, places, and issues of northern New Mexico. This is Inez Russell Gomez. We are talking today to Apryl Miller of the Sky Center.
Thank you, Inez, for having me over. I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks for coming. I know you had to drive all the way across town. And as everyone who lives in Santa Fe knows now, the traffic is crazy.
Yes.
So tell us, for people who don't know what the Sky Center is, let's just start with the basics. What is the Sky Center?
Our mission is to reduce the risk of youth suicide in northern New Mexico. And we do that in a really unique way, I would say, with a full range of programs, getting very early prevention, direct services, and postvention if a young person dies by suicide in our community. So we have we are part of the New Mexico Suicide Intervention Project. We are the primary program for that. The New Mexico Suicide Intervention Project started in 1994. The Sky Center opened their doors in 1997. And we have been offering free bilingual counseling and programs since that time.
Has it always been called the Sky Center?
It's always been called the Sky Center. Yeah. I was on faculty at what was then called the College of Santa Fe.
That's right.
In the 1990s, and we started there in a tiny little cupboard in Alumni Hall, and have certainly grown since then. So in 2008, when the college went into a different direction, I approached the then superintendent of the schools, and they opened up space for us, and we started working directly in a space that was underutilized in the school district.
That's really helpful because one of the things is that you're close to people who might need your services, one would think.
We're very close. And there's something comfortable about being able to identify right now at Ortiz Middle School. It's sort of a landmark in town. Everybody knows it. We have our own separate entrance, our own separate space that we've been able to renovate so that it has a living room style feeling when you walk in terms of the counseling rooms. Our focus is we know that we're dealing with some really tough issues: depression, anxiety, suicide risk, family conflict. At the same time, we want to offer you a cup of coffee and a snack and sit down with a living room style counseling room and present some ideas and work together with the families to create some solutions.
You have such a lovely, soothing voice. I bet that helps when people are talking to you. One of the things that is hard to comprehend, we live in such a beautiful place, we have such a rich history, but young people here are at such a risk of self-harm. And in this many years of operating the Sky Center, why do you think that is? Do we have reasons?
It's a complicated question, and I think a really important point that we have such a beautiful, enchanted community, and yet we're kind of all sharing in this complication of young people dying by suicide. Nationally, we sit kind of at the top 4. Some years it's the top 2. Some years we're at 4. It's still not a number that we want to, have associated with New Mexico in any way. What are the contributing issues? It's complicated. We did a lot of research in our northern New Mexico schools in the late 90s. We can see that some of the risk factors are high family conflict, access to firearms when the situation is kind of volatile.
Sorry, if you're upset and you punch out a window, you're not going to be dead after that. But if there's a gun that you can access, you could,
There's no mercy. There's no second chance usually, right? Complications in school, those are some of the contributing factors, as well as mood problems around depression and anxiety. Why and how do we stay at the Center for Disease Control's top in the nation? That's complicated. Certainly we have access to firearms in one way or another, more so in many family homes, right? And our feeling about that is just, can we temporarily remove them from the family home if we've got sort of a volatile teenager who is not steady at the time? That's sort of our approach to firearms.
So maybe people with teenagers that are kind of moody or anxious, maybe that's when you ask yourself, could I do something else to store these weapons? Even if you have a gun safe and a good lock, the kid can usually figure out how to get into them.
Absolutely, Inez. Can we just get them out of the home until, I kind of think of it as wildfire is high right now, right? Can we wait till that is kind of calming down down a little bit.
Cut your brush.
Yes.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Is that something people are even aware of, though? The idea that this is a prevention strategy that you might want to take?
It's something we talk about at the Sky Center every night of the week. You know, we have free family counseling after school, starting around 3 o'clock. We go till about 9 o'clock every night. And we know that if kids and families are struggling with depression and anxiety, they don't also need to miss math class. So we're there in the evening so that kids can come over with their parents. A lot of people say, why don't we see kids individually? We don't. We know that no matter how tough it is to talk to dad, that basically he's the one you're going to need to figure things out with, no matter how hard it is in your family. If we're looking for long-term, more sustainable solutions, we need to bring, I like to say, if mom calls up and says, my 15-year-old won't come out of the bedroom, we're worried, I like to say, bring everyone who cares about him. That could be grandpa, that could be auntie. So it's a little different approach to mental health services, but...
So you're treating them in context, basically.
Yes, and we know that we feel really strongly suicide risk is not an individual problem. It is a problem compounded by our environment, compounded by poverty, by bullying in the schools, by family conflict, substance use. So we don't want to treat it as an individual problem. So we don't see kids individually. We really want to tuck them into the people who love them the most.
Okay. Now, if somebody, let's say, is severely depressed or something, would you be a place where they might get referred to individual counseling that could help them? Or would that be like a next step? Because I know some people need that one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, adults, yes, definitely. Yes. We can be a referral source for that. But we have almost 3 decades of experience now. We really see amazing solutions when families come together. And we are not working with families who necessarily are getting along. They come in, they haven't talked to each other, they're fighting. Dad hasn't seen kid for 6 months, there's cutoff. This is we're at the heart of the matter, and we're trying to untangle some knots that we feel like could maybe last for the next 5 years. You know, therapists are sort of temporary in our lives, right? Our auntie, our grandpa, not so much, right?
So they're always going to be there.
We're trying to get the solutions embedded in the family and not identify kids as having the problem. Because one of the things I like to say about the Sky Center is we are addressing community issues. We all need to pull together if we're going to have community solutions.
What age group do you guys work with?
Birth through, you know, if dad calls up and said, my kid went down to UNM and he's pretty isolated and lonely and stuff, you know, we like to say, how about tomorrow at 5 o'clock? We don't have a wait list.
Okay.
We really know that when things bubble up in family life, we need to catch them right away. Either they're going to go under the carpet or get worse potentially. So we like to sort of be, you know, kind of address it right away. Not complicated intake. We're not asking about your finances, your insurance, your citizenship. We are asking, how does 6 o'clock tomorrow night work for you? We really want it to be easy access.
Yeah, that reminds me of someone who was saying that the strategy of some program in Utah was, let's get to yes.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, we really walk our talk around easy access. That's important for us. It's one of the reasons why we are kind of leaning on the community for financial support so we can continue to offer free, no-cost services.
On that note, we'll take a quick break and be back in a moment with more Conversations Different.
Are you dreaming of a home of your own in Santa Fe but feel like it may never happen? HomeWise is here to help. We are a local nonprofit that has helped close to 7,000 New Mexicans from all income levels and backgrounds become homeowners. HomeWise has everything you need to succeed in home ownership, including free coaching and classes, real estate services, affordable fixed-rate mortgages with low down payments, and down payment assistance to qualified borrowers who meet income restrictions and credit qualifications. We'll be with you every step of the way. Get started today on your path to owning a home. Call 505-983-9473 or visit us at homewise.org. Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 188231.
We We are back with Conversations Different, talking to Apryl from the Sky Center. Let's go back to what you were talking about in community support. So we're in February, the month of Valentine's, hearts and love everywhere.
Yes.
So this is an important month for you guys.
Yes, it is. We are asking the community to open their hearts because we need the love and hope that the community brings to us so that we can share that with others. Our services are absolutely no cost, everything we do. So this is our big Valentine's Day appeal. We decided to move from December to Valentine's Day. It fits with our mission. We are really trying to bring hope into the lives of those where the sense of hope has diminished so much that they actually are contemplating self-harm and hurting themselves. So we need to really bring in the hope, and we are asking our community to go to our website at theskycenter.org, call our office, 505-473-6191, and to give to the Sky Center as generously as you can with your heart wide open. You'll also, I think next week, maybe see an ad in the New Mexican where there will be a QR code as well to donate.
So that way people can give money and you can keep doing what you do. And I really go back to what you were saying in the first segment, talking about treating the family, because so much of our issues with each other come out of how we were raised, and maybe, something happened to our mom when she was little and that carries over. Yeah. So by bringing everybody together, you have a chance to kind of repair the wrong ways of dealing with each other, or maybe not wrong, but just the ways that aren't helpful.
Patterns that have caused some self-harm, some not the best health. Yeah, we try to bring in, we have this thing we call the Toolkit for Well-Being, and it basically is learning how to regulate your mood. A lot of times when an angry mood comes over us, or depressed, we treat it like a monsoon cloud, like it came in and we can't do anything about it. But we are trying to teach young people, along with their families, if you feel really angry and upset, other than having a big family fight, what other options are there? Can you take a shower? Can you go play with the dog? Can you go outside? Can you learn to take a deep breath and slow down, right? So we're bringing those tools in. If we just taught them to young people, it would be very difficult for that to transmit into the family, right? We're trying to teach the whole family how they can enhance their well-being, lower their risk, enhance their well-being in terms of managing conflict, dealing with difficulties, managing anxiety and depression. So it is really a full family toolkit package, sort of.
Sometimes just as simple as not answering immediately can make all the difference. Like you take a breath and don't.
All the difference.
Yeah. And it's so hard to remember in the moment for anybody,
Yep.
It is. Has your job gotten harder or maybe more harried because, you had the pandemic to deal with and people really got to spend time with their families?
Yes. And there was such a big divide between those who had space, which is a little bit connected to economic status, right?
That's right.
And those who were struggling. I mean, we had in the early months in the spring of 2020, when the governor had us all shut down for safety, we had family sessions with 5 kids and a dad on a large bed because there was no other private space in the room that they were sharing with other relatives, right?
Yes, yes.
That is stressful in the best of times,
No.
right? To have to deal with those kind of interpersonal issues. So we we kind of braced ourselves. We knew that when school opened up in fall of 20, we went hybrid, school went hybrid. We were kind of at the epicenter of a tsunami. So many kids didn't want to go back to school.
Yes.
Anxiety had ridden. When you're in 7th grade and you're kind of barely hanging on to one friend and then you're remote for 3 months, you don't even remember them, right? So the feeling of awkwardness and shyness and just being behind academically. So we went back hybrid, and our numbers increased, and they haven't really settled down since then.
I'm not surprised.
No. And now we have another wave of anxiety in our community
Because we
around
might get deported.
immigration
Yep.
and citizenship. And
Yep.
our philosophy at the Sky Center is inclusivity, that everyone matters in our community. So we have all, once again, been really, the families that we're seeing, everyone has been stirred up trying to sort of create safety and a good place to be.
Yeah, I don't have anyone in my immediate family that's in fear of those kinds of things. And we're all still completely stressed because we have a lot of, dark people in our family, and, we're brown. And when your husband calls and says, take your passport passport wherever you go, because you start thinking about who's going to approach you and what's going to happen. That is just incredibly stressful. And for people who don't have proper documentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we really feel good about the diversity, equity, and inclusion that we have at the Sky Center and our staff. So we are very close to the issues at hand. Our staff represents the community that we serve in every way. We care, it's very hard to talk about emotional problems if you're not in your first language. So we have interpreters on site every night of the week, so that if grandma is trying to explain something about her past or the trauma that we have an interpreter there so she can speak those painful stories in Spanish. That matters a lot. And we also know that even though many kids in our community interpret and translate for their family, it's not the right thing when you're dealing with family issues like this. We don't want a 10-year-old explaining to mom what's going on with her brother. You know, it's too hard of an emotional burden. So it matters to us that we are a culturally sensitive, bilingual, diverse service community that services a community that reflects that.
That's really huge, and especially because within the city, we had gotten to a point where Spanish translation was automatic, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't seem like that's the case, like for many public meetings, et cetera. And I don't know what happened with that, but to be able to go to a space where you can speak your heart comfortably.
Yes, it's so important.
That's important. How many people do you guys see a year, do you think?
We serve around close to across all of our programs, close to around 3,000. We are right now scheduling around 85 family sessions a week. So that's a big full week for us. Families coming in with substance abuse issues, family conflicts. Some families are just struggling because they can't pay the rent. And you know how that trickles down to kids.
Right.
And, mom's working 2 jobs, and of course she can't supervise homework. So then that impacts school performance. I mean, there are so many ways that if you're looking at this systemically, it is very difficult to imagine pulling any one person out and treating them as though they're the problem and the solution, because it's multifaceted.
No, definitely. I know when I was a young schools reporter, I was talking to the superintendent where I worked in Texas, and I said we didn't have homework in high school. And he had worked in that district, and he said, well, that's because we had the philosophy that every student deserved a certified teacher to help them.
Nice.
So no one went home to a parent that was at another job or to their PhD parent who then would give them more help, so it wasn't unequal.
Oh, I love that.
And I've always thought, why don't they do that now? And we keep wondering why the disparities are growing. Well, it's because some people have help and some people don't have help.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we saw with the pandemic is so many middle school age, 13, 14-year-olds had to be the child care provider for younger siblings because dad had to go off to work, and kids were suddenly home and they're trying to do their math work while they're managing a 2-year-old, right?
Right.
Not easy for anyone, let alone a 13-year-old. So we have really taken in those disparities and tried to create a program over the decades that really meets the needs of our specific community.
Oh, I like that. On that note, we'll take a quick break and be back in a moment with more Conversations Different.
This is Patrick Dorsey, publisher of the Santa Fe New Mexican. Looking to reach a wider audience and grow your business? For 175 years, the Santa Fe New Mexican has been the trusted voice of Santa Fe, with unmatched local reach in print and online. In addition to our long-standing, independent, family-owned newspaper, we have a full-fledged marketing team with the expertise to help you succeed in the 21st century. From traditional print to precision-targeted digital advertising, we have the tools to connect you with your ideal customers. Partner with us and see the results for yourself. Advertise with the Santa Fe New Mexican and unlock your business's full potential. Visit us at santafenewmexican.com/advertising or call us at 505-995-3852. Thank you.
Welcome back to Conversations Different. We're talking to Apryl from the Sky Center about a really, I think, innovative way of treating all the issues that we have in modern life, anxiety, depression. It seems like we have maybe more food security than you might have had back in the days of famine and stress, but there's so much nervousness in our society.
Exactly. I mean, that's the Surgeon General, really talked about both loneliness and mental health issues for young people is sort of an epidemic in terms of public health. We have certainly seen that at the Sky Center, a level of anxiety about climate change, about school performance, about economics for like a 12-year-old, so that it's very difficult to enjoy childhood and play when you're sort of carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. But we've certainly seen an increase in anxiety. And of course, now with some of the current situation that's going on in our country and directly in our community. So we are really hoping the community can open their hearts this February and provide some extra support so that we can meet the extra needs that are showing up at the doors of the Sky Center. Again, our phone number 505-473-6191, and you'll find all of our programs at theskycenter.org on the website.
So people can go there and look and see if there's something that will maybe help them in their situation.
We have a lot of information about how to help if you're worried about yourself, if you're worried about a loved one, if you're worried about somebody in your family. You'll see lots of ways. The most important thing is call the Sky Center. We've made sure that we're answering the phone in person. We don't get complicated with lots of buttons and menus and stuff. We know if mom's on the other side and she's kind of teary, she needs someone who's ready to listen and to see if she's found the right place and not have a kind of run around on hold and everything else. So those have been very deliberate decisions at the Sky Center to make us real community friendly.
Wow. I think that's so important because I know just trying to find care providers at different times in my adult life, if you have to press a bunch of buttons and you keep getting a voicemail and then you don't get a call back, at some point you just give up.
Absolutely. And you do give up. And besides, if you're feeling a little fragile, that can just kind of push you a little bit.
That's right. Because when you're feeling depressed or sad or whatever, you don't feel important. And if you can't even get someone to talk to you, then you feel even less.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really important. How do you think as a society, are there any tips like, let's say you're a single parent and you're stressed and you maybe don't need to go get therapy at this point, but what are some things you can do to ease your stress and help your child and help yourself?
Boy, that's a big question. And one of the things I want to say about family counseling and therapy is it's okay not to wait till things are over, really close to the edge.
That's smart. Don't go wait for the crisis.
No, it's sort of like if you went to the dentist, you're not waiting till your mouth is hurting or you're full of cavities. We see that with family counseling. If you're feeling stressed and it's hard to come up with solutions, come on in. Even if it's just 2 or 3 sessions, we'll have a conversation. We'll probably figure out some ideas that will fit just for you and your family. Because we can all read some wonderful things in books and online about how we can improve ourselves, but it's hard to implement them, when you're working and you're managing kids and finances and stuff. So, we really believe in connection and being together. So we really recommend that families, I know this is a tough one, but bringing back dinner time has really been a lifesaver for a lot of families.
Yes.
Just sitting together at one moment in the day. That's hard to do, even if the food has been microwaved, it's leftovers, takeout. It's really the idea of sitting together and checking each other out.
Yeah, no, I grew up with that and I took it for granted.
Yes.
Because every night we sat down and that's just what we did my entire life. Sunday, we had Sunday dinner where my grandma would come over and, all of our friends would sit. And if we ran out of food, my mother would kick my dad under the table and say, don't take any more. And then afterward, he'd be eating a peanut butter sandwich in the kitchen because he was still hungry. And I don't think I realized until I had, a husband and a child of my own, how hard that was.
It's so hard. It's so hard, especially now with screens. Everyone can go in their corner and be sort of isolated, and we don't really hang out with each other in any way. So the thing about it is it's free. It doesn't take a lot of scheduling or planning.
And you have to eat.
Yes. So we're just, those are just some of the simple, really trying to create available, not fancy, things that don't cost money, ways that families can sort of stay close, as well as being outside. We live in a beautiful place to be outside.
Right, you take your family walk after supper.
Yep.
In our house, we always would eat, and then my mom and I would do the dishes, and my brother or my dad would dry them. And it was just that you had these routines and you had to talk to each other.
Yes. Yes.
And it's weird the connections that it would create and the memories that you'd have over the years, more than big fancy things, really.
Exactly. So we're trying to make it really accessible, even if you care about wanting to reduce conflict. We just have some simple ideas. We encourage both those who want to give and those who think they could use our services right now to please call us. We'll work with you to get a schedule that works with your family. Again, I'm going to repeat the number, 505-473-6191. Folks will answer in English and or Spanish, whatever the need is at the moment.
And I think just the idea, I remember once on a vacation, I was going to say something and both my husband and my son looked like, oh no, mom's mad again. And I was like, me? I'm never mad. And that's when I realized that you don't hear your tone of voice. Mm-hmm. And one of the things to learn to be self-aware so that you don't always sound impatient with your kid. You wouldn't speak to your coworker like that, but you're at home and you're like, da, da, da. So I think going to counseling is one of those things that will raise your self-awareness.
Absolutely, Inez. And we also have other programs. We do a lot of community trainings in the communities. We're in the schools running what we call inner and outer life skills for kids. How to learn the life skills of both how to calm yourself down, as well as how to talk to the math teacher if you missed the last 5 classes.
Right.
If you don't know that skill, you might just want to not go back, right?
Yes.
So we are trying to teach what we call inner life skills and outer life skills, how to solve a problem with a friend, how to kind of feel better if you're nervous, those kind of things. So we have a full range of programs that go from all the way to early prevention, just doing health classes in the schools around depression and anxiety, to our family counseling.
Oh, that's really helpful. I know I was very nervous in middle school because we were in a new place in a new town, and my mom gave me beads to pull on. So instead
Beautiful.
of, talking too much, or I scratched my head because I got nervous and I would, it was just not fun, but I had my beads. And I did the same thing when my son couldn't take tests. He got a squeeze ball, because we all have these nervous tics, etc., and we just have to deal with them.
Yes, and those are, sometimes you get stuck as a family. Those are beautiful ideas, and we just kind of generate ideas on how for any given family things can get better.
Oh, I like that. And that's so important because sometimes we feel so alone.
Yes.
And you guys have seen it, not necessarily seen it all, but you've seen a lot of it.
Yes.
So another family's experience can inform the people you're talking to in the moment.
Yes. We've also seen, unfortunately, the devastating, rippling impact of a young person in our community dying by suicide. The amount of people that are impacted in the school, even if they didn't know them well, just the idea that a classmate in math class is no longer there, generations of families. It is something that we work really hard to prevent because we know that it's an immeasurable loss for our community in ways that we can't even really calculate.
Yeah, no, I was in a class that our singular memory is that one of our classmates died by suicide on New Year's Eve in a fit of grief. And when we came back for our reunion 40 years later, that was the memory we still all had.
Wow.
And we still missed him because he was a great guy and popular with all different groups. And imagine if that's your brother or your son or, in your family.
Or just the impact it had on your classmates and you, memorable in that way, Inez. Yeah. So we are trying to get as far ahead of that to prevent that so that our community doesn't have to deal with that kind of tragedy, even though we have had the Sky Center's been there for multiple deaths by suicide over the decades, and we know firsthand the impact. That's our prevention goal, is to get ahead of that.
I remember in Texas, that town where it was almost like an infectious disease. And that's what you don't want to have happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you think it helps when there is a suicide, though, if instead of pretending it didn't happen, the schools were more open about it? Or, how do you talk about it without, giving it too much, whatever? I don't know. What's the best way to deal with it in the aftermath?
I mean, our approach has been that clarity and honesty is the best way for prevention. I mean, we know this around sex education. We knew this around other kind of infectious diseases and stuff, right? Information is power. Okay. Information is prevention. We know that if we talk about suicide, we're not going to suddenly bring that thought into someone's mind, the opposite is happening. They suddenly know that you know about suicide, right? And that you become sort of an identified safe person to talk to. So we have a pretty strong feeling. Of course, in the Santa Fe Public Schools, we follow their guidelines around sort of what can be disclosed in terms of parental consent and stuff if a young person died by suicide. At the Sky Center, every single night of the week, we are talking out loud about suicide. We are getting mom or dad or grandma to practice these tough questions like, I'm worried about you. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Will you tell me if that thought comes to your mind? We know that teaching that to families is the same as teaching them to buckle their seatbelt.
Yes.
If mom and dad and grandma can get comfortable saying that, the kids' risk has just been decreased. Because suicide is a vulnerability and isolation.
Yes.
As soon as we break up the isolation, we break up the risk.
That's really good advice. And on that note, Santa Fe, we hope that you help the Sky Center this month and open your hearts. This has been another Conversations Different. We'll be back next week.